Wintertime on the farm is sometimes indoor time, and a lot of times there's projects going on. Believe it or not, one of the projects that we like to do while we're waiting for the ice to get thick enough is get our worms going. This is our old worm tray. It's quite the mess. But we actually grow and raise worms in this chunky thing. But the kids thought they'd improve it some. So with a little luck from an aquarium at Walmart, we're going to make it a little nicer. So one thing about raising worms is they got to be fed. Another thing about raising worms is that if it goes dark, they come out. And they crawl out, which is not fun. So the nice thing about an aquarium like this is it's got its own light and its own cover. And you can put the food and the debris that you want them to feed off of and live off of in it. And then when you want the worms, you pick out your few worms and you go ice fishing or whatever you'd like to do with them. So for us, it's kind of a fun little thing. So the girls here are opening up the aquarium. The size of this aquarium is 10 gallons, which holds plenty of earth to have literally hundreds of worms. They're used in fishing a lot. Now, we don't need everything in this kit. Obviously, we don't need a filter and a pump to move water. But what we are after is the hood, the aquarium, and of course the lighting system in it, which is LED, which is really affordable because you're going to be burning it a lot with worms. Because again, if you shut the light off, the worms come up, which is great when you want to get them to go fishing with. But it's not so good when you want to keep them in their location, feeding on stuff that you want. So the nice thing also about this is kind of from an educational standpoint is that couple inches of dirt at the bottom, the worms are moving around in. And because it's a glass aquarium, the kids will be able to see them more and enjoy their raising of worms. So in this farm, we raise chickens for meat. We use chickens for eggs. We raise some pork for ourselves. We raise, in the past, some beef for ourselves. And then we've got goats, which we raise for both milk, which is made for our cheese and yogurt and stuff like that, and our soap and our laundry, and of course for our shampoo. But we also eat our goats too. So really the only animal we raise that doesn't have a main purpose other than enjoyment is probably the horses. The horses are for pulling us around and just our enjoyment. And the worms are in the same kind of boat. They don't have a major purpose, but we still like them for fishing and we still like doing it. I suppose you could think of the same thing with our aquariums. The aquariums don't have a lot of purpose other than enjoyment. So the enjoyment of the worms, the enjoyment of the horses, enjoyment of the aquariums are kind of all in the same kind of category, the way we look at it, versus everything else has more of a true purpose on the farm. So Tabitha's just figuring out here, what we need to keep and what we don't. She's just kind of figuring out the directions here on the lighting. It didn't come assembled. She has to undo the LED lighting and take the little pucks, as you call them, and get them slid into the cover. I remember in the day when you used to buy these aquariums and they had that, fluorescent tube cover on top and it stood up there 4 inches and it wasn't really heavy, but it was bulky and awkward. And, you had a plug-in on it with a little rheostat switch in the middle that you could flip back and forth with your finger. These things are so much nicer. They come with tons of cord, little push-button switch, which is really nice. They're really flat and close to the top of the aquarium. Just really nice for just dealing with worms like this, I guess. I almost wanted to say pet worms. They're not really pet worms because we're going to use them for fishing, but whatever. They keep us out of trouble. Now, people ask all the time what we feed the worms. Well, we have, old pumpkins. We have squash remnants from when we cook squash. We have some food sources from upstairs, and everything from the salads and lettuce and meat stuff. You put that in there, and a lot of these guys eat it right up. See, there's 3 LEDs in each of these, so there's 6 LEDs total for this 10-gallon tank. It's going to light it up perfect just to keep the worms at bay. When it's daylight, the worms do just like they do outside. They stay in the earth. When it gets dark at night, and if their area gets too moist, up they come. And sometimes that's not the most enjoyable to come down and realize that you've got, 100 some worms crawling out of your tank. So this is what we're going to do. So she's got it all set here. She's getting them slid in. They just kind of slide in from the side here. And once she gets them in, we get this puppy kind of turned on. And then things will get going here pretty quickly. So The smell is always a question when people come downstairs and they see that we have a worm farm. They're always like, oh my gosh, does that smell? Well, when you lift the top off that big old Rubbermaid tub, you can maybe smell some, squash or pumpkin or something in it. I'm not saying there wasn't some odor to it, and you certainly can smell the moisture of the dirt. But really, worm farms don't tend to smell very much. I can't say there's a lot of issue where we go, oh, ick, it stinks. You know what I mean? So that's not a problem with raising worms. Now, if you go to a bait shop and you buy worms, you might be paying, $10 for a pop for a little container, a blue container of worms. So when you got 7 people that go fishing and you raise your own worms, this is really nice. It's very affordable. And you can see this old blue tub, we've gotten it pretty dirty. It's not the cleanest thing in the world anymore. So it's time to relocate. So one of the first things they're going to do is they want to keep a lot of the food stuff up on top so that they can, get rid of it once the worms are done eating it and decomposing it. So they're going to take off some of the stuff that's still good enough to use. So you can see here, this is what it looks like. There's leaves and junk in here. It's a worm farm. Well, what could I say? So they're going to take that stuff off first, and they're going to kind of save it off to the side because it's still probably usable. And then they're going to put the worms into the aquarium, kind of level it out the best they can, and then we'll refeed on the top, and then we'll get the light on it and get them going again. So it's kind of an easy pet if you want to think about it. And you know what? If you screw it up, $8-9 at the bait store and get yourself some new European angle worms. isn't the biggest killer. So she's just cleaning it up a little bit, getting rid of some of the trash that she doesn't need, and then it's a matter of just kind of dumping it in. This particular setup of worms has got some pretty moist structure in the middle of it, so she's going to probably have to use her hands just kind of break it up a bit. Nope, see, you start seeing the worms there? They start showing themselves. They're just kind of hanging out, moving around. The girls are doing all the filming here, so if it seems like it's going a little fast, just bear with me. This is their worm farm, not mine. All those worms. Just kind of digging through it, getting those worms in. Nice long worm there. Worms are really great educational things for kids to understand how soil works, how things get broken down. They're very helpful to our environment. They're very farm friendly. Without worms in our garden, well, we'd have a mess. See, the worms are doing really well there. There's a good spot of them. Getting these all dumped in here. And they're not really going to self-level this dirt, so we'll try to kind of level it. You can see it kind of sticks to the bottom of the container. The worms work their way right down to the bases. They want to eat things right down to the bottom level, which is fantastic. I absolutely love that. And then you can see it's kind of a mound here in the tank. They're just going to kind of level that out and, make sure it all gets down to the bottom. Get all the worms in here first, obviously. I think it's a good thing for kids to learn educationally. Understand what the insects and stuff do. We have bees on the farm too. I forgot about the bees. Bees obviously have a purpose too on the farm. So do the worms. So Julie here's got a little hands going and she's just kind of leveling it out. As you can see, now we'll be able to see on the sides a little bit more how this works, because we can see the sides now when the worms come up against the sides, which I think will be pretty cool. So all we got to do now is put the food back in it. We feed them every couple days. You got to keep the temperature warm for these worms to stay active and keep reproducing. And then, of course, you've got to control how many worms you let within the space. But that's not too difficult, at least during the winter months, because ice fishing is kind of fun, and using the worms is good bait. So that's just what happens to worms, if you know what I mean. And if we raise too many come summer, release them to the garden. It's what we do. So now they get this picked up and get it put back where we had it. And now we can just start using its nice little light, which is great. And it's going to work out really good. Get everything plugged in here. She's going to get the lid on the top of it. There you go. Now she's just got to get things kind of plugged in here a little bit. This used to be my old workbench area, but I've since kind of been kicked out of the house, and I use the shop now, and that's been just fine. There we go. She's getting all nice and straightened up. Get the switch on here. There we go. It lights it up really nicely in there. We've got the room lights off right now, so you can kind of see it. This light being on will keep the worms in the dirt. Hopefully they'll keep eating and keep reproducing like they have in the past, and we'll have a little bit more of an educational clean display that we can work with these worms. Thanks for watching, folks. Please like and subscribe and follow us on the farm as we keep doing great projects like this.